Winter is coming, and depending on where you live, cold weather can be brutal on your skin. Many people are going to change up their skincare routine, choose different products, often leaning into richer creams, ointments, balms to really protect the skin from harsh, cold, dry winter wind. As a side note, I have a video in the pipeline. It may actually be up at this point, all on my winter skincare essentials. If it is up, I'm going to link it down below in the description box. However, there is one thing you want to be super careful about when it comes to your skin. This is something that is not intuitive, and it doesn't involve a cream, a lotion, a serum, a cleanser, no skincare product. This is something that people commonly do when it's cold, and it can seriously damage your skin. And winter is a time where you may fall into the trap of making this mistake. And once you make the mistake, if you continue to make this mistake, the damage to your skin can unfortunately be irreversible. This is not something anyone really talks about much. Like if you find magazines that give best winter skincare essentials, they're mostly going to be focused on products. No one is going to be talking about this thing that can seriously damage your skin. It's something that I have seen people do as a dermatologist, and I really wish that more people knew about this so that they could avoid making this serious skincare mistake. What exactly am I talking about? All right, this condition is referred to commonly as toasted skin syndrome, but the proper name for it is erythema ab igne. And it can happen from using heating pads and heated blankets to warm yourself up in the winter. It starts out as a patch of redness at the site where you've been applying the heat source, and the redness looks like a net. Lots of different skin conditions, as a side note, take on the appearance of what looks like a net from a distance, and so we describe these rashes as reticulated. Reticulated just means net-like, and it kind of reflects how the underlying blood vessels in the skin are oriented. So the redness, importantly, will blanch, meaning when you press on it, it will turn white. This is what happens in the beginning. And in the beginning, this redness, it will resolve within a couple of hours after you withdraw the heat source. Now, it can be itchy, it can burn, but for most patients, it's actually asymptomatic, meaning they don't feel it or realize it's going on, which is kind of sneaky because if you have been applying like a heating pad to your lower back, an area where you don't typically see, like you're not really visualizing the skin of your lower back that often, you may not even realize that this is happening. With chronic repeat exposures to that heat source, that net-like pattern of redness, it becomes hyperpigmented and a lot more persistent, meaning when you remove the heat source, it does not resolve as quickly. You can also get blisters in the area, and you'll often see dilated blood vessels. These are called telangiectasias. Erythema ab igne happens as a result of chronic exposure to subthreshold levels of infrared radiation. So basically the temperature is high enough to damage the skin, but not quite high enough to burn your skin, usually somewhere in the ballpark between 43 and 47 degrees Celsius. Now, from what we can glean by looking at skin biopsies of erythema ab igne, meaning we take a piece of the skin out, put it on a microscope slide and look at it under the microscope, there is a lot of damage going on in the deeper layers, the deeper components of the skin. Now, the junction between the top part of your skin, the epidermis, and the bottom section of your skin, the dermis, that junction there in erythema ab igne, it gets flattened out. And the skin cells that live there, they're called the basal keratinocytes, they are degenerated in erythema ab igne. You get thinning of the dermis, and the collagen and elastin that provides a supportive framework, it looks bizarre and is damaged. Because there is damage to that basal layer of the epidermis, what happens is you get leakage of pigment down into the deeper layers of the skin. Remember in my video on arbutin, how we talked about that the pigment producing cells, the melanocytes, they live in that basal layer. They live in the basement of your epidermis. But anything that causes damage there can cause pigment from those pigment cells to drop down into the deeper layers of the skin, the dermis. And once that happens, these cells come in called macrophages. They're professional eating cells. They're like Pac-Man. They engulf that pigment, that melanin pigment, and they hang out there stuffed with pigment, and that leads to dermal hyperpigmentation, which is a lot more stubborn to fade in comparison to hyperpigmentation up in the epidermis. You can also see dilated blood vessels under the microscope, consistent with the telangiectasias that you see with your eyes. Now, once somebody starts developing this, what can you do? It's actually quite simple. You just stop applying the heat source. You remove the heat source, and in most cases, this will go away in a few weeks. Honestly, as a side note, this is actually the case for so many skin conditions in dermatology. Once you know what it is, you know what the root cause is, it's as simple as, removing the trigger and things go away. No medication needed. However, with this condition, especially if it's been going on for a long time, it can become more persistent. The longer it goes on, the longer you're exposed to that heat source, or keep applying the heat source, I should say, the more stubborn it becomes. And despite removing the heat source, that hyperpigmentation can persist. For people who have deeper skin tones especially, that hyperpigmentation can be quite stubborn to fade. Hydroquinone, which I have lots of videos on as a side note, can be helpful for treating this hyperpigmentation. While this will go away for most people, provided they remove the heat source, they stop applying the heating pad or the heating blanket, if you keep on using the heating pad or the heating blanket, the change can become more fixed, more stubborn, more persistent, and more disfiguring. Aside from those changes, the longer it goes on and remains persistent, it can actually become, quite literally, a hotbed for skin cancers, especially squamous cell carcinoma. Squamous cell carcinoma is a type of skin cancer that's really common. Primarily happens in sun-exposed areas of the skin as a result of chronic sun exposure, sun damage. However, it can also crop up in erythema ab igne due to the damage that repetitive heating of the deeper layers of the skin has caused. It's going to take several years for that squamous cell carcinoma to pop up. So if you do have this, it's prudent for your healthcare provider to monitor the area to make sure you don't develop any type of skin cancer. Rarer types of skin cancers have also been reported to arise within erythema ab igne, including something called marginal cell lymphoma and Merkel cell carcinoma. I have a video all about Merkel cell carcinoma and various other skin cancers in my skin cancer playlist. Definitely check that out. Skin cancer is no joke. Now, of course, I framed this video around the upcoming winter months and the use of heating pads and heating blankets. However, erythema ab igne, it can happen from other things that warm your skin. For example, these days we actually see a lot of cases of erythema ab igne happening on the thighs from laptops. Your laptop, it should be called something else to discourage people from putting them directly on their laps. The heat from the laptop can cause this on the thighs, so don't put your laptop directly on your skin. It definitely can cause erythema ab igne. People also will use heating pads a lot to alleviate back pain or other discomforts, regardless of the time of year. Honestly, it can happen to anyone who spends extended periods of time in close proximity to any type of heat source. So historically, it was often observed in people who would warm themselves up by a stove. In India and China, the rash was historically seen in people who would carry hot coals under their shawls or sleep on beds of heated bricks in the winter months in order to keep themselves warm. Now, I have even seen a patient who got erythema ab igne on their thigh from carrying their cell phone in their pocket. Whose cell phone has ever spontaneously gotten super hot? I had a patient whose phone kept getting really hot and they were keeping it in their front pocket, not really bothered by it. I was like, oh, this is just nice and warm, whatever, I'm gonna ignore it. Developed erythema ab igne right where the cell phone was hanging out in his pocket. I have also seen several cases of erythema ab igne in patients who have been hospitalized in the intensive care unit. In the ICU, they will often use warming blankets. It's necessary. And in the ICU, many patients are are, have altered mental status. They may be, not alert or whatever. They may not be able to verbalize that it's too hot or that it's uncomfortable. So they're an at-risk group for sure. And something like if you work in an ICU, if you're a nurse, be on the lookout for this because it can definitely happen. I've also seen patients get erythema ab igne from heated car seats or like a heated reclining seat, chair. Other heat sources might include a hot water bottle. Like a lot of massagers these days heat up. Erythema ab igne is a lot more common in women in comparison to men. Probably the nature of our skin is a little different. Certain occupations, due to the nature of their work and close proximity to heat sources, are a lot more at risk, like bakers putting bread in the stove. Anyone who works in fast food, those lamps that warm the fries, or like you go in a gas station and there's that heat lamp over the taquitos rolling there. If you work in a place like that and you're constantly, in and out, changing things out, that's a lot of heat exposure that, could put you at risk for this. Metal foundry workers are another group at risk for erythema ab igne. I have also seen cases of erythema ab igne from moxibustion. Moxibustion is a Chinese medicine practice that involves burning mugwort leaves up close to the skin surface using like a stick to apply heat. So that's another situation. All right, y'all. So that about wraps up what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to share with you on erythema ab igne. Hopefully this serves as sort of a PSA to be mindful this winter when using heating pads and the like to stay warm. But if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.